طب احنا ما عندناش وقت، نقول ربعين من الترنيمة وبعد كده نبتدي عشان اتأخرنا. سبحوا مجدوا زدوا علو إلى الأبد رحمة، فهو المسبح والممجد والمتعالى على الأظهر وإلى قد رحمته آمل ماسح والنور في قبره شهادة حي على قيامته طول العصور. آمل ماسح وبينقم هنحيا معاه في الأبدية لآخر الدور. آمل ماسح وانتصر على الموت والآلام، قام المسيح من الأموات. افرحوا يا كل الأمم، سبحوا مجدوا زدوا إلى الأبد رحمته، فهو المسبح والمتعالى على الأظهر وإلى الآباد رحمته. آم المسح ولو ما كان أمين الموت كانت الكرازة باطلة، لكن الآن آم المسح وصار باكرة الراقدين. قام المسح وقار قوات الظلام، قام المسيح من الأموات. سبحوا يا كل الأمم، سبحوا مجدوا زدوا علو إلى الآباء رحمته، فهو المسبح والممجد والمتعال على الأظهر وإلى الآباد رحمته. شكرا.
Hello, everybody. Can you please come up? I feel like I'm all by myself up here. Come forward. Come forward. Huh? Yeah, don't be shy. Come closer. Thank you. Okay. So as you know, very soon it's going to be summer, and the kids are going to be out of school, and you're going to be hearing, I'm bored, what can I do? She hit me, he touched my toy, he's not sharing. Okay, so this is to help us think about summer, which is coming up very soon. Think about things to do with your kids. We're going to talk about summer camp, we're going to talk about safety and all of the things, and feel free to also add anything I missed, add advice or tips that have worked for you, or your thoughts or ideas about any of this, because again, we all learn together. Like we're all family, we're all a community, we're all parents, and it's helpful to teach each other about things that we know. So like I said, we're going to talk about safety, we're going to talk about events and activities, we're going to talk about things that you can do at home, and we're going to talk about like just encouraging each other. Before we start, I want to get an idea of how many, like the age ranges of your kids. So how many people have kids 0 to 5? Okay. 5 to 10? Okay. 10 to 15? Okay. 16 and up? Okay, so everyone's under 15. Okay, and then let me get an idea of who works out of the home. Who's out of the home all day or most of the day? Okay. Anybody works from home? Sometimes, okay. Anybody work part-time, like you have some time off during the week, but a little bit? Okay, all right. So it's just helpful just to get an idea of what your needs might be. So the first thing that we're always going to talk about safety first. So the first thing about summertime, these are all things that you already know, but just as a reminder, things like remember to always use sunscreen, especially like you know it gets very hot here, right? So making sure you're always using sunscreen, making sure you have like hat or sunglasses, like lighter clothes so it doesn't attract the sun so that your kids don't get very hot. Take breaks when you need to, obviously. Like the hottest part of the day from 12 to 4 when it's very, very hot. Be careful not to be outside during those times. Staying hydrated, make sure you have a water bottle for you and your child, but for you too, because that's something I always forget. I always bring a water bottle for my kids, but I don't bring one for me. So making sure you have a water bottle and that you're staying hydrated throughout the day. Using bug spray, because there's so much bugs here in Massachusetts, like ticks and mosquitoes and all of the other things, so making sure you're using bug spray. And then also in the water, so I always say, like, no matter how shallow or deep you are, like the water, if you're at a lake or a pool or wherever, and even if your kids are strong swimmers, always keep an eye out on the kids because anything could happen, and it can happen so quickly. So just being careful whenever you're around water. And then also keeping an eye on children when you're at a playground. Obviously, when it's nice out, everyone's at the playground, watching your kids, watching the other adults too. Like sometimes, like I remember one time I was at a park with my friend and she said, oh, I see someone over there. They're just by themselves. They're watching the kids, but I don't see any kids going up to that person, So being careful of your own kids and then watching also the adults in the area, just being mindful of the other adults. And then the other thing is windows and screens. So in the summertime, there's always an increase of accidents with the windows because, like, you know how these windows open from the bottom, but they also open from the top? So making sure that if you can open it from the top, especially when your kids are little, open it from the top. Or if you can't, make sure there's a screen or make sure the screen is really secure because there's always an increase of injuries of children falling out of the window by accident, right? Like accidents happen, but there's always an increase, so just being careful of that, okay? The next thing we're going to talk about is if your child gets lost. So I have lost my child before at a farm, and he's 10 years old now, and he still talks about it, okay? It happened when he was 5. He still talks about how I lost him, and he's mad at me for it. So just, it happens, right? I mean, it happens to anybody. It's okay. The important thing is that you know what to do and your child knows what to do. So one thing I always like to say is if you lose your child, one thing, it sounds weird, but one thing that you can do is call out what you're looking for. So I'm looking for a little boy with brown hair and brown eyes, and he's wearing a blue shirt and green sneakers, right? So that way everyone around you knows what your child looks like, and they're all looking for your child too. Because if I'm running around just saying my child's name, no one's gonna know who I'm looking for. They don't know what he looks like, they don't know how old he is. So yelling out description of what your child, of like the child that you're looking for, so that everyone else can help look for you too. And then what I always tell my kids, is to find a person who works at the place that we are. So if we're at a zoo, look for someone who works at the zoo, or look for a security guard, right? So look for someone who is employed at that place. Or if they can't find that person or a security person, find a mommy or daddy with kids. So find another family versus finding like just any adult. Find another family with kids, because even though you don't know for sure, but it's more likely that someone who's there with their family is going to be more willing to help a child who's lost, right? Then like it's more likely that that person is someone safe versus someone who doesn't have kids with them. So always look for an adult with kids. The other thing that's really important is telling them to stay where they are. So this is why I couldn't find my son, because I was looking everywhere and he was looking everywhere and we kept on missing each other. So just telling your child, if you're lost, just stay exactly where you are, don't move, because I'm probably running around looking for you, and if you're also running around, we're not gonna be able to find each other. So you stay where you are, and I will run around and I will come find you. And then if you can, if your child is old enough, have them memorize your phone number, because they can always go to an adult and say, can you call my mom, this is the number. Or sometimes I've also seen if your kids are very little and they can't memorize a number, I've seen people put like the phone number like on the arm of the child, their phone number on the inside of the arm. That way they have that number if they're not able to memorize it, or like having it on a paper in their pocket or something like that, if God forbid they get lost. Anything, has anyone else lost their kid, or just me? Am I the only parent who's lost a kid? And if you have any ideas or tips about what you can do or what worked for you, it'd be helpful also if you shared them. But that's what worked for us, yeah. A picture of your child? Yes. Yeah, that way you can show them, exactly. That way people know what to look for. Okay. So the next thing is solo play dates. So meaning if your child is gonna go to someone's house by themselves. So like when your children are younger, you might go to that person's house with your child and you might sit while the child is playing at the house. But as they get older, you might feel more comfortable letting them go to the house by themselves. And whether that person is from church or from school or from camp or from soccer, right? There are certain things that you can do to make sure that your child's safe at that house, because it's never gonna be your house. So one thing I always remind the kids is, even if you're not at this house, you still have to follow these rules, right? Our house rules are our house rules, whether you're in our house or you're in someone else's house, right? So if you go to someone else's house and they wanna watch something that you know you're not allowed to watch, then you can just say, oh, actually my mom doesn't let me watch that, right? Just because you're not with me doesn't mean that my rules don't apply, right? So just reminding your child that they still have to follow those rules and reminding them what those rules are. And I think it's also helpful to give them examples. So like the watching something is a good example, or like talking back to an adult, like just the simple things that your child knows are right and wrong, and just reminding them of what those are and reminding them that they still have to follow those rules. Make sure your child knows how to contact you. So like, let's say something happens and your child's uncomfortable, making sure your child either has a watch or a phone, or can ask the adult, can I use your phone, right? So making sure your child has a way to contact you in case they're uncomfortable, in case there's an emergency, in case they're done, in case they get into a fight and they're done, right? Whatever it is, but making sure your child has a way to contact you, and let that adult know too, let that adult know, hey, he might ask you to use your phone, is that okay, right? So making sure they have a way. And also asking the parents of the house that you're going to about anything that might be dangerous. So asking about alcohol or asking about marijuana. Marijuana is legal, right? Some people have them out. Some people don't store them well, or they don't lock them up. So asking about alcohol, asking about marijuana, and also asking about guns. I know it can be uncomfortable to ask about those things, especially if you're friends with that parent, but it doesn't have to be uncomfortable. You can make it a very casual thing. Hey, by the way, it's cool, it's fine. Whatever you do in your house is fine, but I just wanna make sure it's locked away because my child can get into everything. Or if my child sees something that looks like candy, they're gonna eat it, Because a lot of marijuana and things like that, we talked about how like they look like candy, they look like Skittles, or they look like M&Ms, or gummy bears, right? They look like all sorts of things, and kids don't really know. Like they don't always know any better. So just asking them about those things. And there's an example here of a chain of what it could look like. It's kind of hard to see. So this one says, looking forward to seeing you later today. Awkward question for you. It's one I think whenever we visit a new home with kids. Do you have guns? And if so, are they stored? And then you write your child name, likes to check out everything and just want to make sure that he doesn't get his hands on anything he shouldn't, right? So again, it doesn't have to be uncomfortable. Hey, I can't wait to see you. I'm very excited. My child gets into everything. Do you guys have any guns, and are they stored properly? Just because I want to make sure like he doesn't get anything he's not supposed to get into, right? So again, it can be uncomfortable, it can be awkward, but what I like about this example is the person says, I know this is awkward. Like I know it's uncomfortable, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. One thing that I will never apologize for is making sure my child is safe. Like no matter how uncomfortable it is, even if that person says, you know what, I don't want to hang out with you anymore, that's fine, because safety is always going to come first, right? Okay. Any questions so far? Any ideas or comments or anything? Okay. Okay. The next one. Can I leave my child home alone? So this is a question that I feel like people are always wondering, right? Can I leave my child home alone? So in Massachusetts, actually, there's no legal age for when you can leave your child home alone. So legally, you can, but what I will say is you have to use your judgment. So is your child mature enough? My 10-year-old is not gonna be the same as someone else's 10-year-old, right? Or my 8-year-old is not gonna be the same as someone else's 8-year-old, right? So you have to think about certain things, like one, if there's an emergency, does my child know what to do? Does my child have a way to contact me or contact 911? Does my child know how to make food for themselves? Is my child gonna be by themselves, or will there be a sibling there? And if there's a sibling, is that sibling younger or older, right? Because I might feel comfortable leaving my 10, 11, 12-year-old home alone, but not if I have a 5-year-old, right? Or a 3-year-old, or even a 7-year-old, right? So you have to think about your kids and their maturity level and their ability and the context of who else is in the home. And also think about how far away am I gonna be? Am I gonna be down the street, or am I gonna be an hour away at work? And how quickly am I gonna be able to get home? Are there other adults in the area that I can call if there is an emergency, right? So these are just all things to be thinking about when you're deciding whether or not you can leave your child home alone. And also think about, is there any other option? Sometimes it's not an ideal option. Like, maybe maybe you have a friend who can watch them for a few hours. You don't love the idea, but it's better than leaving them home alone, right? So just things to think through about safety and leaving your children home alone. I mean, in some states, the youngest age that I found was 8 years old. So some states legally you can leave your child home alone from age 8. But again, there's no legal age in Massachusetts, and you just have to use your best judgment. And you know your children, you know. So there's no set age, but you know your children. You know what they can do. You know if they can keep themselves safe or not. Okay. All right. Questions so far? Okay. I feel like I'm going to give you a lot of information, but please feel free to ask questions. Okay, so this is my favorite part, events and activities. There's always something going on, okay? Anywhere in Massachusetts, there's always some kind of event and activity. And we're also really lucky because there's a lot of things in the state actually that you can do, and a lot of them are free. So the first thing I'm gonna talk about is museums. So these are some of the examples, right? So museums, farms, zoos, playgrounds, splash pads. There's a lot of public pools. There's a lot of events going on usually in the summertime in different towns. So we're going to talk about each one of them. So first of all, the museums. I'm sure you guys have been to or know about these museums. And I'm sure there's some that I don't have up here that maybe that you know about. But these are the ones that are more popular, and these are the ones that are really local. So you have like the Children's Museum in Boston. That's definitely for like younger kids. I would say like 10 max and younger, but who knows? Sometimes I think my child is going to be too old for something, and they go and they have a great time. So you never really know, right? But my recommendation would be 10 and under for the Children's Museum. There's a Museum of Science. That is definitely, I would say, 10 and older. There's a lot of fun things going on there. Sometimes their exhibits change. They have a lot of hands-on activities. They have shows. There's another Children's Museum in Easton. There's a Discovery Museum of Acton, the aquarium, right? So all of these museums are options, and there's a lot more that are even like out of state in the states surrounding us. And the thing about museums and zoos and all these other places is even though there's a ticket, most of the time the library will have a pass for you. So and the library either gives a free pass for 4 people or a reduced price. So like if the entry fee is like $20, it's usually like half off or something, or it's like a $5 fee or something to get into the museum, because it can get very expensive, especially if you're a family of 4 or 5 or 6, right? So always look at the library, look at your local library, or if you have a Boston library card, you can look at the Boston Public Libraries too, and they usually have passes available. The other thing is that there's also a lot of zoos in Massachusetts. There's a lot of zoos. I haven't been to all of these zoos, and I will say my favorite zoo is the Rhode Island Zoo, the Roger Williams Zoo. It's probably the best one, so I would recommend going there if you're thinking about going to the zoo. The Mendon one is fine. It's close. It's usually like the closest one, and it's fine. It has animals. And Southwick Zoo, Franklin Park, like they're all fine, but my favorite one is the Roger Williams, personally, in my opinion. But again, it's just something to do. And actually, the nice thing about zoos, it's funny because whenever I take my kids to a zoo, they always end up at the playground. They don't even really care about the animals. They see the animals and they have fun, but they always end up at the playground because they usually have like a fun area where the kids can play, and it's different. It's not the usual playground. So again, something that you can do on a weekday if you're able to take the day off or take some time off and take them there. It doesn't even have to be a full day thing either. It could be a half day, like if you want to work like half the day and take the rest of the day off. So it's always an option too. Another thing is farms. So there's also a lot of farms in Massachusetts, and like way more than here. Like these are just the ones that I know about that are local. So like Tugas Farm is a really nice one that's local. And the nice thing about farms is there's a lot of activities. First of all, there's almost always a playground. Again, there's almost always a playground where the kids can just play and run around. There's open space. Sometimes they also have fruit picking depending on the season. So like you can do strawberry picking or berry picking, or in the fall there's apple picking, right? So there's always something to do there. And there's not always, but there's also usually like events too. Like sometimes they'll have like, you know, dinosaur day or something, or like construction trucks, or they'll have like some kind of event where you can come and touch trucks or something like that, you know? So look up these different farms and see if they have events coming up, because then it can be a day activity, right? It's like, okay, on this day, this farm is having this activity, I'm gonna make a day out of it. Davis Farmland is actually not really a farm, it's like a zoo farm. I don't know if you guys have ever been there, but it's so much fun. It's so much fun, yeah. It's huge. It has about like 10 playgrounds. It has a huge splash area where the kids can run around in their bathing suit. And it has lots of animals. They can feed the animals. There's hay rides. It's like you could spend an entire day there, and it's fun for everybody. I think sometimes things are just fun for the kids, but this is fun for the adults and the kids because there's just so much to do and there's so much to see. So that's a really fun place. And they always, not always, but they usually have different events going on too. So you can always try to go there on a day where they're having like a special event. Okay. Now, for the older kids, there's also a lot of amusement parks in Massachusetts or in the surrounding areas. So I don't know if you've ever been to like Six Flags or like Canopy Lake Park, where there's a lot of roller coasters and rides. Usually there's also a water park, like Six Flags has a water park. Canopy Lake Park, I can't remember if they have a water park, but they definitely have water rides at least. There's also Eadville Family Park, which is out in Carver. It's a little bit far away, and it's more for younger kids, but there's like Thomas Land there, there's like Dinosaur Land there, and they have little roller coaster rides for the younger kids. If you go to Cape Cod, out in Cape Cod, there's an inflatable water park where there's one side, it's all water slides and a water park, and the other side is all bouncy houses. So that's also a fun time to like spend the day. You can just make a day out of it, you know, drives. It's about an hour drive, I would say, usually. So you drive out there, spend the day, and then come back. Or if you're going to spend the weekend there, that's something fun that you could do. Water Whiz, I've actually never been there. Has anyone ever been there, Water Whiz? Yes, is it fun? Okay, good to know. I've never been, so. Okay. And they went? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So that's good to know. I've never been there, so that's good to know. So Water Whiz is fun. And then there's also a place called Breezy Picnic Grounds and Water Slides. It's basically just a lake, but it has big water slides, and it has like people bring their grills, and you can spend the day there. So again, just anything just to keep the kids busy, you know, keep them engaged, do something different. Sometimes it's fun to just like leave where you're living, you know, like just leave your town, go to the next town over, or go drive an hour. It makes it feel like a vacation, even if it's not. But it's just nice to go somewhere different. The other thing is that there's a lot of playgrounds that have splash pads, so like basically just water that shoots up from the ground, or like little things that just like spray water, and the kids love it. Okay, like I remember when my son was like 8 or something, I said, we're gonna go to a playground that has a splash pad, and he said, no, I don't wanna go, I'm too old for that, and I made him go, and he had so much fun, right? So they think they're too old for something, they think it's babyish, but once they get there, they have fun, because at the end of the day, they're very simple and they're just kids. So these are some examples of parks that are fun that have bathrooms. So the one in Medway has a bathroom. The one in Boston, the Artisani Playground, has it has a splash pad, it has a playground, and it has like a little pool. So it's like a 2 feet deep pool that kids can just splash around in and play. So like if it's a hot day, you have nothing else to do, and the kids want to do something fun with the water, that's a fun thing to do. In Marlborough, there's a couple of playgrounds that also have like a splash area and a little pool, like again, like just a very shallow pool, like a foot or 2 deep, and they just splash around and play and run around. And then there's also Blue Hills in Milton. So that's actually, there's a lot of things at the Blue Hills. There is a playground, but it's mostly hiking. So if you guys like to hike or walk, it's a fun way to spend the day. There's a lot of different paths. There's hard paths if you want to do something that's like more physical. There's very easy paths. There's flat paths. But we've gone there a couple times, and the kids really like it. Just, again, just a fun way to spend the day of walking outside and being in nature and being together. Okay. The other thing is local events. So one thing I always do, and I'll show you online if we have time about how to look it up, but your local town's Parks and Recreation Department usually has different programs and events. So like, for example, I'll show you Framingham Parks and Recreation. They have summer programs. So it's not like a full day thing, but they'll have like a half day dance class for a week, or they'll have a half day soccer clinic for the week, or they'll have like different class options that the kids can do. And they almost always have different events. So like I know during like the Easter time, they had like an egg hunt for the kids, and you had to sign up and register, and you do the egg hunt. And then like during the fall, they do like a pumpkin carving event, you know? So they're always having different events for the kids. So always check out your local parks and recreation, or look up local towns too. Like if you live in Framingham, you don't have to just look up Framingham. You go look up Ashland or Natick, like any of your surrounding towns, because each town has a parks and recreation, and each town has their own activities that they do. The other thing is the library. So I already told you guys about the passes, but the other thing about the library is sometimes they also host events. So sometimes they'll do like a block party where they like close off the road, and they have different people who come in and have like different booths, and they have different activities for the kids and games and food trucks and stuff like that. So always check out your library, because they usually have events, even if it's not outside. Sometimes they have events in the afternoon, like chess classes, or like 3D printing or things like that. So always check out your local library. Or if you live in a smaller town, check out the local library of like a bigger town that you live next to, because they might have more options. The other thing is state parks. So there's a lot of state parks in Massachusetts. Like Hopkins State Park is a really popular one. Even the Framingham one on Contituate here. Again, it's just like a lake. It's sand. Even if you don't go in the water, it's nice to just spend the day outside. You can grill. The kids can play. Get together with some friends, right? So don't forget that we have a lot of state parks here that are also options. And you can swim in most of them. Most of them are swimmable. Sometimes, always check though, because sometimes they have like alerts about the water. Maybe the water's not safe, but usually you can swim in them. And then the last thing is the town, like your town itself, like outside of Parks and Recreation and the library, sometimes the town also hosts events for the community. Usually there's like a traveling carnival that comes around to the town, so like check out when the carnival is coming or any other local activities. There's also usually a weekly farmers market in every town. Like I know Framingham does one, I think Ashland does one. I'm sure Natick does one too in the downtown area, where it's just like farmers come and bring their fruits and vegetables. But on top of that, there's usually also activities to get people to come to the farmers market. So always check out the farmers market too and see what's going on there. There's also a lot of websites that are really helpful for you to like look at activities. So Mommy Poppins and Busy Toddler are two websites where you can look up activities. So like it's not events specifically, but it's different activities that you can do with the kids. But the one that I really like is Community Kangaroo. It's excellent. I can't tell you how much I love that website. So Community Kangaroo will tell you, it'll tell you events that are happening. You can sign up for a newsletter, and every Thursday they'll send you an email with local events happening for the weekend. It tells you about summer camps. So if you're looking for summer camps, you can put in what town you are, and it'll tell you all the summer camps in your area for each week of the summer. It tells you about just lots of different ideas and things that are happening in the town. So Community Kangaroo, if there's one website I would recommend, it's Community Kangaroo, and I can show it to you at the end if we have time. And then the other thing is Facebook groups. So don't forget, like Facebook groups are really helpful in finding about different things. So like there's moms groups, there's towns groups, there's school groups, like your local school PTO probably has a Facebook website, or like I know there's like a Metro West Moms Facebook group where people post questions, or they'll post ideas, or they'll post events. So don't forget about Facebook, and don't forget to look at those, because those are always giving me helpful ideas too. Do you guys have any other websites that are helpful that you use? What? Same thing, yeah. Okay. Okay. The only thing I will say about summer camp. First of all, I love summer camps, okay? This is how I survived the summer, actually, is with summer camps. It's hard to look for summer camps, and you have to do it early. So there might still be, if you're looking for a summer camp for your child, there might still be openings in some places. I would look at Community Kangaroo first, because that's where you get the listing of different ones, and then you could check out the website for each one. But also remember that your town might have a summer camp too. So like Framingham doesn't do a full day summer camp, but I know like Natick does one, I know Wayland does one. So some towns also have their own summer camps, and it's usually less expensive than the private summer camps. So like it's less expensive than like the YMCA, for example, or like any of the other private summer camps there are. So check out your town, check out the Parks and Recreation, and then also ask the school, because sometimes like for example, if your school has an after-school program, sometimes the after-school program also has a summer camp. So ask the school too, and if they haven't sent out something about it, ask the school, does the school have like a summer program, even if it's not for the full summer, is it some weeks? The other thing is summer camp is very expensive, so you don't have to do it for the full summer, but you can also pick out weeks. Like if there's a week that you're stuck, that you know that you have to work and you don't, like the kids don't have anything, maybe look up summer camp for that 1 week, okay? But the thing about summer camp is you have to register like in January sometimes. So it might be too late for this year, but just keep it in mind for next year, okay? All right, now, things that you can do at home with your kid. So first, let me start by saying, this is not research-based, okay? This is my own opinion. But I'm convinced the amount of effort that you put into an activity, if you put this much effort into an activity, your kid will like it this much, okay? During COVID, the amount of, I remember during COVID, I saw online an activity, and I went on Amazon, I bought all the stuff. I woke up early, I set it all up for the kids. I was so excited for them to wake up. They woke up, and about 30 seconds later, they were done with the activity, okay? So kids are very simple. They don't need a lot of stuff. They don't need a lot of like effort. Like, don't worry about doing something crazy and big and different, because kids are very, very simple. Like, you know your kids. Sometimes, like when they were babies, right, we bought them all these toys, and what did they play with? A water bottle, right? Yeah, ketchup, like nothing, right? They didn't play with anything. They're very, very simple. So just remember, it doesn't take a lot of work for the kids to be entertained. And again, I'm convinced by this. I might do some research on it because I think the amount of effort you put in, the less fun the kids have. So again, it doesn't take a lot. So like even if you put the kids in bathing suits and they run outside in the sprinklers, or you have like a little pool that they splash around in, or you can get those packs of water balloons, like BJ sells the big packs of water balloons, fill up the water balloons, have them run around and throw it at each other. They're gonna have so much fun. Some of my kids, like my kids are 8 and 10 now, and some of their favorite memories when they were younger was just throwing water balloons around outside. You know, they're like, oh, do you remember? I'm like, I've taken you here, and this is your favorite memory, you know? But they're very simple, you know, like painting rocks, like things that are not expensive. Go outside for a walk, collect some rocks and leaves, and come inside and paint them, right? So it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Go for a bike ride. That was another thing that we did during COVID because we had nothing else to do. We bought bikes and we would all go out for a bike ride, you know? It's like family memories, you're spending time together, and you're entertaining the kids. Even like roasting marshmallows. And by the way, like when I was younger, I would just roast it on the stovetop. Like I didn't need to have a fire pit or anything fancy. I would just do it on the stove. And even if we didn't have a gas stove, we would still do it over the electric stove. And it was fun, you know, and it's still like a happy memory. So just remember that it doesn't take a lot for kids to be happy and enjoy their time and have a fun day. They really just want your company, honestly. They want your company and your attention, and they want something very simple, and that's it. And that'll make them have an enjoyable summer. Before I came here, my son was sitting with me, and I said, do you want to see my presentation? And I said, is there anything you want to tell people about summer? And he said, just let the kids have fun. That was his only advice. So just let them have fun, you know? Okay, another big thing is screen time. So this is always a struggle with parents. Like, how much screen time should I give them? Is it okay that they're watching TV? First of all, I want to say it's okay, okay? It's okay for them to watch TV. It's okay for them to watch a movie and be lazy. I find that especially if it's very hot outside, if it's raining, right? It's okay for them to watch TV because also it's their summer, right? They should be relaxing and enjoying it. I think the things that to be careful of is how much screen time are they getting, right? So you don't want them to be on it all day long. Make sure you have like secure time where they're not using screens. So like during meal times, like make sure all electronics away, or during family time, right? So having special time together is really important. But otherwise, it's okay to be flexible, and more flexible during the summer than you are during the school year. And things that you just have to be careful about, which I know you guys all know because we've had other talks about this, but being careful about parental controls. So things like YouTube are not monitored. Even YouTube Kids, it's not monitored. It's all monitored by the user. So unless someone reports something, they're not going to know if it's good or bad. So just being careful of what the kids are watching, making sure they're doing it in a public space. So like if they want to play on their iPad, have them do it downstairs where you're around them, not in their room by themselves. Even when they have friends over, you know, making sure they're all together in front of you, not somewhere closed behind a closed door. And also the other thing is gaming. So like, again, it's okay for them to be playing games and chatting online, but making sure you're knowing who are they talking to, what are they saying, because that's where it can get tricky with not knowing who they're talking to. So because, you know, some people say like, oh, I'm a kid, I'm just playing this game with you, but it could be an adult, right? So just being careful. They don't know that, but you know that. So just being mindful of who they're talking to, and like trying to monitor the chats, right? So like if my kid is playing Roblox, for example, like Roblox is very popular, there's a chat function on there. So I like look over like, what are you guys talking about in the chat? Are you using the chat? If so, like what are you guys saying in the chat? What's the conversation happening? So just being careful of that. For older children, one thing I really like to encourage is working. So I had a coworker tell me her daughter turned 14 in December, and she said her and her husband put a worker's permit application in her birthday card. It's like hey, you're old enough to work now, right? So if your child is old enough to work and you're comfortable and you feel like your child is mature enough, you know, that's always a good way to spend the summer, making some extra money. I remember one of my favorite jobs was in an ice cream store. It was one of my favorite jobs. I had so much fun there. My friends were there. There was, you know, I was always busy, especially in the summertime. It was so much fun, and it was such a nice way to spend the summer because, again, I got to make some money. I got to be with my friends. So, you know, is there somewhere around your house where your child can ride their bike and go to this place, right? So, for example, like one of my jobs was at the library, and I used to ride my bike to the library and come back, right? So, are there things around your house where your child can go if you're not able to drive them, or are you able to drive them? And that would be great too. Are you able to take them to work in the morning and they can find a ride back or something like that, right? But don't think of that as an option, right? Or if you don't think your child is ready for that, or if you're not ready for that, are there things at home that your child can do? Could you give them tasks? Here's a list of things I want done by the time I'm home from work. And maybe there's an incentive. Maybe there's extra screen time. Maybe there's time with friends. Maybe it's money, right? There's a lot of different options that you can do to engage them, to help them get through their day. I think the hardest part about summer, but also the best part of summer, is that there's no routine, right? So there's no routine and there's no schedule, but kids and adults need that routine to like keep going. So trying to set up some sort of routine for them. I'm gonna rush through because I think the kids are done. The other thing I'll just say is academics. So that's another big thing, like should I be making my child do academics over the summer? It's up to you. There's no right or wrong answer. I think just remember that it's their summer and they wanna have fun and relax and reset too. But also remember that they're probably learning even if they're not sitting there and learning something. Like if they're reading, if they're doing their summer reading, if they're playing games, Monopoly, Tawla, right? Like all of those things are engaging them in reading and math and learning, right? These are some websites and things like Khan Academy is a popular one for math. Card games are a good one for math. There's a lot of podcasts. Remember, there's a lot of podcasts they can listen to that give them, that tell them stories and things like that. Yeah, and you can be learning without like having to sit down and learn. Basically, is the message here. And that's it. That's my talk. So like at the end of the day, just remember, kids are simple. They don't need a lot. They just want to have fun and enjoy their summer. Make some plans. Stay hydrated, and you got this. You can do it. Okay, you will survive. We will survive this summer. Do you guys have any questions or tips for each other? Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. I'll send it out on the WhatsApp group. Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Yes. A voucher? What kind of voucher? Like daycare?
الو الو.
هما بيعملوا ابلاي عليه، يعني في رقم تليفون ممكن تتصل بيه او تشوف التاون عندها بينفع يتعمل فين وبتقدم عليه يعني. بس هي بتاخد العرض ده لو هي شغاله، لكن ما بيدولهاش الخصم لو هي قاعده في البيت. فهي لازم تبقى شغاله ومعاها ورق يثبت ان هي شغاله عشان خاطر الحكومه تدفع لها حضانه البيبي، ممكن من ساعه ما يتولد لحد 2 أو 3 سنين. اول سنه بتبقى فري.
It's not? Okay. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I can look into it. I can ask and look into it. The only vouchers I know are usually income-based, or they're through like the government agencies that provide like assistance, like WIC or Department of Transitional Assistance, but I can look into it and see, because I'm not sure. It's not by income. Okay. Okay. Is it like a lottery or no? Anyone can get it? Not sure. A lottery? Okay. 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 I don't know. I will do some research and ask. I can ask. Okay. All right. Any questions? Yeah.
But I didn't for this year.
That's
Like,
cool.
so I don't know.
Yeah.
I just learned about this summer.
Yeah.
Anyone you can tell.
Okay. So there's someone saying there's a Worcester art camp that Worcester Museum does an art camp. Yeah, Worcester Art Museum has like an art camp for kids. So it's something. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you could check. Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Some camps also do scholarships. So even if you can't get a voucher, sometimes you can apply for a scholarship at the camp.
حد عنده اي سؤال تاني نسينا يا جماعه؟ حد عنده اي سؤال نسينا؟ عايزين تستفسروا عن اي حاجه؟ خلاص عرفتوا هتعملوا ايه في السمر للولاد؟ طيب بالنسبه بقى للسمر عايزين تعملوا يوم روح الصيف ولا لا؟ طب عايزين نرفعوا ايدينا عشان انا بنشوف كل كتير من الكراسي التانية ومفيش حد كتير من كنيستنا فأنا طبعا عايزين يوم روحي أكيد ماركت دي هكلم أبونا مايكل ماشي أوكي ماشي يا حبايبي أوكي هنعمل طب يونيسف 20/7 20/7 حلو طيب 20/7 مناسب ليكوا ولا إيه؟ ما احنا لازم يبقى نختار 12/7 في 20/7 في 27/7 ايه رايكم؟ 20/7 حلو؟ طب هكلم ابونا ونشوف المناسب ليه اوكي؟ السحب يلا سينا اسحب لنا
5945. 5945. Winner.
come on yes
5944. Five nine 37. 37. 37. Yeah.
مدام
رب يسوع المسيح على كل حال من أجل كل حال وفي كل حال يا رب دبر أمور حياتنا. ادينا حكمة يا رب في كل أمور حياتنا وفي تربية أولادنا وفي كل حاجة يا رب تمتد إليها أيدينا بشفاعة السيدة العذراء مريم رئيس الملائكة جليل ميخائيل مبوق القيامة والقديس العظيم ماري مرقس الرسول القديسة رفقة أولاد الخمسة اجعلنا يا رب مستحقين أن نقول بكلمات الشكر أبانا الذي في السماوات قدس اسمك ليكن قدس تكن مشيئتك كما في السماء كذلك على الأرض خبزنا كفنا أعطنا اليوم واغفر لنا ذنوبنا كما نغفر نحن أيضا من يسيء إلينا ولا تدخلنا في تجربة لكن نجينا من شرير المسيح يسوع ربنا لأن لك الملك والقوة والمجد الأبد آمين.